ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM. This is a special presentation of Fort Wayne Sports Station, ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM. The Crumback Chevrolet High School Coaches Show starts now. Presented by Crumback Chevrolet in New Haven. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Serving Allen County for 46 years in counting. On Highway 930 just west of New Haven High School. Here's your host, Justin Kinney.
Welcome in, everyone, to the ESPN Coaches Show presented by Crumback Chevrolet. I'm Justin Kinney here with DC Hendricks till 7 o'clock. Usually we say we're here talking high school football till 7 o'clock, and we will talk some football. In fact, we're going to kick it off here in just a couple seconds with Coach Luke Amstutz of the East Noble Knights. But it's our transition show, our transition from football to basketball. So we'll have Coach Amstutz on. Then we'll bring on Mr. Dan Vance of OutsideTheHuddle.net. We'll break down last weekend's state championship games. And then we'll start talking some basketball in the second half hour of the show. We'll talk to Rod Parker, Homestead Spartans. We'll talk to Eric Thornton of the Norwell Knights, two teams that are off to very, very good starts to start the season on the girls' basketball side, who have now been playing for a good several weeks now. So we'll talk some hoops, we'll talk some football, and we may even make fun of DC Hendricks here or there. Right, DC?
Which could be an hour show every week.
Yeah, it feels like we've been gone more than a week. I mean, a week ago today was, of course, Thanksgiving. Feels like it's been a minute since
wasn't long enough. I wasn't ready to deal with you again.
Yeah, thanks, DC. I knew it was coming. I knew you couldn't be cordial. Although you haven't been cordial since I walked in this studio.
No, I've been pretty grumpy today.
Either, something's going on, or I did something to offend. Hopefully during one of the breaks I can figure out if it was me or not me.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
I mean, if it's not me, I couldn't care less about what's going on.
That's right.
But yeah, DC's here. I'm here until 7 o'clock. We'll bring on guests throughout the show here as we head into the 7 o'clock hour. And of course, tonight, big NFL game at Soldier Field, Bears and Cowboys. You can hear that later tonight here on ESPN Radio 1380, 100.9 FM. Let's get it started. Let's talk. We had one area team represent the Northeast Indiana at the state championship last Saturday at Lucas Oil Stadium. It was the East Noble Knights. They fell 21-3 to Evansville Memorial. Let's talk all about it with the head coach of the East Noble Knights, Mr. Luke Amstutz. Coach, how are you?
Doing great.
Heading to Chicago? Are you going to the Bears game?
No, just heading on a little weekend vacation.
Okay.
Yeah, just need to get away. It's been a nice long football season, fortunately, and it's time to hide for a little bit.
I'm sure, and I feel it too, but you have to feel it times 10. It's like when Friday comes, you felt like for so many months your weekend was planned, or at least your Friday night. Now, if it's a sudden, what do you do?
Yeah, with the new rule changes with the IHSA last year, more and more programs kind of really get their start in, April now. And so we were practicing and, getting together and talking football and coaches meetings and things like that. It definitely felt like the longest season ever, even though it literally was, making it all the way to the state finals. But, it's long, but it was worth every second. It was, it was an awesome experience and, a great team. And we're just, real proud of what these kids accomplished.
Coach, before we go through last Saturday's game, want to get your impressions of before the game. You felt like this team was ready to go, ready to really capture the experience and enjoy it. Did they enjoy it? Was there a lot of nerves heading down to the field there on Saturday afternoon, or the guys handle it pretty well?
I think we handled it okay. I really, when it all comes down to it, I think the kids, responded well. The kids were ready to go. The thing, we just kind of ran into some things that caught up with us that hadn't hurt us all year. We had an injury right in the beginning of the game to our starting running back, and we had barely lost a kid all year, and that was a little bit shocking. And then a couple turnovers, or you maybe a little bit of panic because of the inability to score against a really good defense, and that was a really good defense. And we're still winning at halftime, but it just, like I said, we just kind of ran into a few things that we hadn't experienced, and those kids from Evansville, they've been there 3 years in a row and kind of experienced some of those things, and they were just a little better prepared for the situation.
Coach, you mentioned after the game it was the best or one of the best pass defenses you've ever faced. What was Evansville Memorial doing for you to give them that much credit following that game?
Well, there's a lot of good teams out there that'll, put really good players on the field and just man up against you and lock you down and say, no, you're not throwing to these guys. And we've got good receivers that'll get open against that. What we faced Saturday for the first time all season, and maybe the first time since I've been a head coach, 12 years, is a team that played like a two deep zone, and they were playing off, but what they were doing was dropping those linebackers so fast and getting to their spots so perfectly, as well as getting pressure at the same time. And it took away all the deep stuff. It took away the ability to throw the fades, things like that. But it also made it real hard to throw the underneath stuff. And that's kind of an area where we had thrived all year, was the ability to, kind of pick and choose and throw some of the underneath stuff. But the way those linebackers played in that game, it was something that we had never seen. And they were very good at it. And a lot of credit to them.
That front four of Evansville Memorial was able to really get in the backfield with regularity. Was it the quickness of them? Were they stunting a particular way? Was it a combination of things?
Yeah, they definitely a combination. They had a couple of really special players there that were very talented. They also they were running some some twists and stunts, like late breaking, like they'd come off, get into their normal gap, and then kind of pick each other. Like they were just doing a lot of things that you don't see very often in high school football. And then couple that with our running back, getting knocked out of the game, who's our cleanup guy in pass protection, and we bring a sophomore running back in who had a really good game, but kind of inexperienced in those situations, and it kind of snowballed for us, and we weren't able to keep Bailey in the pocket very well, and just gave us some fits and led to a couple turnovers and led to a couple frustration plays, and then when we did get it going, we had a holding call or this or that, and just kind of things just kind of snowballed in that second half, and we weren't able to move the ball as well as we'd like.
It felt like despite, Evansville Memorial scoring 21 points, they were helped off turnover. They really never drove on your defense. I felt as much as your offense struggled, I thought your defense probably didn't get as much credit as it should for the way it played.
No, I think the defense played a great game. They scored on a double reverse pass, and then they had a long, 70-yard touchdown on one play. And but you take those two away, I think the other one was a pick six, and we blocked the punt, and it was 14-3. We block a punt. We're right there in scoring range. If we can just get a field goal, it's 14-6, and we get a tipped ball, interception in the end zone, and kind of eliminates that threat. So we shot ourselves in the foot, over and over, and didn't play. We didn't do what champions do in that situation. If you're gonna, last year in the state finals, Bishop Dwenger playing another Evansville team. They was 3-3, I think, maybe in the end of regulation. But they had kept playing good defense and kept not making mistakes and gave themselves a chance to win. But unfortunately, we didn't give ourselves that opportunity.
Coach, we mentioned Bailey Parker, and he was on the run all day. He was getting hit time and time again. I've never seen a kid take as much punishment as Bailey Parker did on Saturday. He continued to pick himself up off the turf. Teammates were picking him up. A couple times he got looked at on the sidelines. But that kid just left it all on it's cliche, but, man, he literally left it all on the field on Saturday. The kid just was getting beat up but continued to take snap after snap after snap for you.
He did. He was... and I've not seen a kid more crushed, after losing a game emotionally than he was. Bailey had, been one of the most dynamic players in the state all year, had, been the leader of our team all year. And after that game, he took a lot of the burden of losing that game on himself. And, I've done everything I can to talk to him about, there's a mistake or two, but gosh, the kid played so tough. He was so good. He's one of the huge reasons that we were there. And, when you go through a season like that, go 14-1, get to the state finals, and have 3,000 yards passing and 1,500 yards rushing, there's an awful lot to be proud of. Bailey will, as time goes on, he'll start to focus on the positives of all that, and he'll look back and enjoy that experience, and even though it was tough for him in the moment.
Coach Luke Amstutz, East Noble Knights, joining us here on the ESPN High School Coaches Show, presented by Crumbach Chevrolet. Coach, after the game, there was a lot of emotions, but you gathered your senior group together. You asked the media to step back away, give you guys a little private moment. What happened? What was said in that huddle?
As a high school coach, you have a group of seniors every year, whether you get to the state finals or not, that you become very close to. And, I think, as a kid progresses through high school, they turn more and more into a man. And by the time they become a senior, they become someone that, you as a coach can trust, and they learn to respect you, and you naturally become a little bit closer. And in those moments, it's, I just like to remind those kids that, and especially this team in the state finals, that they've poured their hearts out for me for 4 years, for more than 4 years. These kids, these are all East Noble kids. These kids have been, playing for East Noble since they were first graders. And, they've poured their hearts out for this community, and they've done everything that's been asked of them. And I just want to make sure they know that for the rest of their lives, myself and our program and our community are there, going to be there for them. And it's something to look those kids in the eye when they're in that situation. But that's a special group of kids. I'm awful proud of them, and just wanted to make sure they knew that.
And that senior group is now a part of a team that really raised the bar for you guys, because East Noble, you guys have had so much success over the years, just couldn't get over that hump to win a sectional. Now you guys get all the way down to state. I have to feel, man, has the level now been raised, the expectations been raised in Kendallville within your program now that you guys have been able to make it to Indianapolis?
For sure, and that's what we wanted. I would say that we have that expectation going into every year that we're trying to put together a team that we believe that can get to the state finals. And I've told other people that I've had other teams that I think were as talented as this team, and we're close, but maybe you run into Bishop DeWinger or a really good Northwood team or whatever it might be. This team did raise the bar though for the next generation. There's already younger kids that are talking to me about when we can start throwing, or what are we going to do in the weight room, and all this stuff. I think it's going to kind of reinvigorate some things. We've had, like you said, we've had a lot of success, but that success kind of gets stale. Going 9-2 feels like a bad season sometimes, when we've had 18 straight seasons like that, and that's something that I'm proud of, that we've attained that level of success. But these guys got us over the hump, and now I think we have a whole lot of young guys that are hungry to re-experience that again. And whether we get down to the state finals or not, I know that we're going to have a lot of kids that are going to be working their butts off to try to make that happen.
Coach, the emotions of losing a state finals game immediately afterwards, disappointment, but when did you really start to reflect and really look over the entire season as a success? Was it minutes? Was it hours? Was it days? Are you still kind of getting over it? Where are you at?
In some ways before the game, and in some ways in the week following now, the amount of people that have reached out to me and our players and our coaches with, saying things like, it's unbelievable how this community came together, and, there's bars all over Kendallville where they're live streaming the game and everybody's having a great time watching East Noble football, or there's people down and, watch the game in Indy, and there's people that were bust out their 1997 letter jackets, and getting together with their friends and watching the game. Like, that's special stuff. That's the type of stuff that happens in small towns like Kendallville when you have a lot of success. And I'm real happy that our team could be something that, brought a lot of people joy and brought a lot of pride to our community.
Coach, it's always a pleasure. Thanks a lot. Thanks for taking us on the ride that was the 2019 season for East Noble, and enjoy some time off. And I'm sure right around the corner it'll be time to get all the guys together again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Justin.
All right. Thanks, Luke. Take care, buddy.
Goodbye.
That's Luke Amstutz of the East Noble Knights, heading to Chicago for a weekend away, which is well deserved, like you said, after weeks and months of football. and especially on the weekends, Friday nights, of course, into Saturdays, and by then you're exhausted and you're really nothing to do but relax there Saturday night into Sunday. But a great season for East Noble ends with a 21-3 defeat against Evansville Memorial in the Class 4A state championship game on Saturday afternoon. We got more to talk about that game with our next guest, Dan Vance of OutsideTheHuddle.net. He'll join us after the break. You're listening to the ESPN High School Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Enter the all-new college football pigskin picks. Go to ESPNFortWayne.com and pick the weekend games. It's your chance to win weekly prizes and win tickets to your pick of any home Notre Dame game in 2020. And if NFL is more your style, enter the Peter Franklin NFL You Pick'em contest for a shot at winning a certified pre-owned Rolex watch. Enter now at ESPNFortWayne.com. And be sure to listen to every Purdue Boilermaker game and Thursday, Sunday, and Monday NFL football right here on Fort Wayne Sports Station.
Premature birth is the #1 killer of babies. Those who survive often face birth defects and complications that affect them for life. A healthy birth is the dream of every parent. But for hundreds of thousands of families with a baby born too soon, the reality is their baby's first home is the newborn intensive care unit. It's the hardest thing they will ever have to face. And it's even harder on the baby. This is a crisis that knows no boundaries. 15 million babies are born prematurely worldwide. Nearly 1 million will die before their first birthday. Do something today. Help the March of Dimes provide education and support to families and fund life-saving research to give every baby a fighting chance. Give them tomorrow at marchofdimes.org/tomorrow.
Driving means
freedom,
exploration,
fun,
pride,
flexibility,
travel,
protection,
ability,
friendship,
excitement, independence.
Distracted driving means
danger,
recklessness,
irresponsible,
chaos, police,
devastation,
injury,
tears, death.
Safe driving means staying alert and staying alive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Seeing the world through new eyes and the earth from miles above. Not just breaking news, but breaking barriers. Now that's a job for a Girl Scout.
There's always news about Notre Dame sports, and the very latest is covered in the Blue Gold Report podcast, Fighting Irish Sports from the Inside Out. Download the Blue Gold Report. Go to ESPNFortWayne.com today.
Hello, my name is Andrea Delzell, and I've been using a wheelchair since I was 5 years old. If I had one message for the general public, it would be relax. Some folks get really flustered around disabled people, so they just pretend we're not there. I've actually had waiters talk to my companion and completely ignore me. People with disabilities just want the same respect and consideration as everyone else.
This is a message from United Spinal Association. Download our disability etiquette booklet at unitedspinal.org.
You're listening to the Crumback Chevrolet High School Coaches Show on ESPN Radio, 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back, everyone, to Thursday edition of the ESPN High School Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet. This is our home Thursday evening, 6 to 7, for another couple weeks. And then I believe, DC, the 19th, we're switching to Wednesdays. Does that sound familiar? Do you have no idea what I'm talking about?
You were my boss, so I go off what you say.
Rags is what tells me what to do, so I think he did say that. So Wednesdays.
I just follow the totem pole, Justin. I listen to you. You tell me what to do, what time we're on. That's your first mistake. That is true. You said it, not me.
Yeah. So, in a couple weeks, we'll go to Wednesday with bringing on a variety of guests. But we got Dan Vance is going to join us here in just a couple seconds. But thank you to Coach Luke Amstutz of the East Noble Knights joining us a little later. Rod Parker, Homestead Spartans, Eric Thornton, Norwell Knights. We'll talk some girls basketball till the top of the hour, 7 o'clock. Somebody that covers both football and basketball. We thought, why not bridge the two with a guy that can talk both? It's Dan Vance of OutsideTheHuddle.net. Joins us right now. Dan, what's up?
Oh, not much, Justin. How are you, man?
No, I'm okay. You're a regular now. I heard you yesterday on Sports Rush. You were on Tuesday at halftime at Blackhawk Christian in Northside, so they may as well just give you a
making
shout.
my rounds.
Yeah, doing the media tour. So before we shut the door on the football season, and I may put you on the spot here for a couple things for season-ending awards, but let's go look back on Saturday, East Noble and Evansville Memorial. Everybody kind of felt that East Noble was in a good spot heading to this game. We felt, man, it could even get away from Evansville Memorial at some point if East Noble's offense was able to get going. We just watched East Noble just get held 33 points under their season average with just a single field goal. We had Coach Amstutz on a little earlier, talked about just what that defense did, but I think all of us left Lucas Oil Stadium on Saturday pretty surprised at what happened.
Yeah, even I think the people who thought that Evansville Memorial was going to win that game probably did not expect the game to turn out the way it did. I thought more of the first half didn't really surprise me, a feeling out process, two really strong teams. And we obviously figured out that Evansville Memorial was a little bit bigger and stronger and faster than we expected them to be. So the first half didn't surprise me. The second half also didn't. I just figured it was going to be East Noble that was going to put up the points and start pulling away a little bit in the second half. That was a very good Evansville Memorial team. All the credit in the world to them. And, at the end of the day, and I said it to you that day while we were down there at Lucas Oil, is it possible that it was just too big of a game for East Noble, that it started to get to them a little bit, that they realized where they were when some of those interceptions got thrown and the big hits came?
You crying?
Oh, a little stuffed up. No, try not to cry, Joseph.
Well, you bring up a good point, and not saying that East Noble was satisfied getting to Lucas Oil Stadium, but sometimes when you're there for the first time, and I'm talking players, and I'm talking coaches, and again, really, you're not basking in it, but you're, enjoying the moment, and it's exciting, and, oh, by the way, you also have to play a football game, and I'm not saying that East Noble overlooked Evansville Memorial at all. I'm just saying in terms of preparation, in terms of handling the moment, Evansville Memorial being there the last 3 years, I think gave them an edge in that department. We felt maybe it wasn't going to be that big of a deal, but maybe it ended up being one.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly the point there, is that Evansville Memorial had been there before, and there were some changes for them, obviously, in personnel. There were some changes in the fact they were in Class 4A. But you have a coach who in 12 years has been there 5 times now, in John Hurley, and they definitely look like the more experienced and comfortable team. And even me walking out on the field, I had never been on a high school or a pro football field before. It's bright lights, it's big, and there's some nerves, and I don't think that East Noble showed that early, but once things got going and things started kind of snowballing out of their control, I think there was definitely some looks in some of their eyes like, oh, wow, this is where we are and this is what's going on, and instead of just playing their game, they kind of realized the situation a little bit more.
Dan, let me throw something at you real quick, and it's now the fourth time in the last 7 years that we have not had a champion at any level, in any of the 5-6 classes of high school football in the area. Do you feel that is showing the weakness potentially of Northeast Indiana, or is it something that it's darn hard to win a state championship? Is there something there, or is there nothing?
I don't think there's a ton there. I think that we've had some tough years, but we had teams capable this year, and we had teams that were capable in multiple classes, and we saw Dwenger was so close in 5A to even getting back, and would they have had a shot? Originally, we didn't think so, but that 5A game didn't seem to be as big of a stretch as we expected. Obviously, East Noble had a shot. I think South Adams had a shot in 1A, but again, getting there is hard, and getting it done there is hard. So I don't really read too much into that, the aspect of thinking that maybe we just don't have good talent. I think we have the teams that are capable of getting there and doing it, but actually getting there and doing it is not an easy task.
If we had to give out some season-ending awards, I think everybody would agree that the player of the year was Bailey Parker. Would he also be your most valuable player, or is there somebody else in mind you feel that's deserving of MVP?
It's so hard to not say that he's your most valuable as well, and you and I talk all the time about the difference between that and player of the year. But Bailey Parker's value all around the field, I mean, this is a guy who was 4th on their team in tackles coming from a free safety position, led the team in interceptions, obviously what he did offensively, running the ball and throwing the ball. East Noble is not anywhere near the level they're at, and that was a very good football team, top to bottom. But, without Bailey Parker, it's hard to say that he wasn't the most valuable to his team throughout the year because of what he did basically every second of every game.
Of course, I think Team of the Year, you go with East Noble. You look at Coach of the Year, you could go in different directions. But is there a surprise, positive or negative? Let's do one of each, positive and negative. Is there a positive surprise that surprised you this year? And then on the flip, is there a negative surprise that caught you off guard?
I think the positive surprise for me would be the level of competition we saw in the Northeast 8. This is a conference the last couple of years. There's always been 2, maybe 3 teams at the top. But this was such a competitive conference this year to have so many teams post what you'd have to say successful seasons when you're looking at they're just kind of beating each other. And obviously, East Noble at the top of the heap, but Leo had a great year. I mean, we look at this as a Leo team that didn't win anything, yet they only lost twice throughout the entire year. Calb had a great year. Columbia City had a successful year. Norwell was better than they had been. New Haven had some really good games and some really good wins. So I think the positive for me is how strong that conference was, where we saw one power, but it wasn't a huge drop-off behind them. And as far as a negative, I think that, like you said, the negative would have to be the state championship drought, just because second biggest city in the state in Fort Wayne and how big this area is and how many schools we have, you would hope to have a state champion. So I think in a year you come out of it without a state champion, you look at it as a little bit of a negative.
All right, Dan, you're the expert in area high school basketball, and we're now with state finals behind us in football. We're going to focus and zero in on high school basketball. Before we kind of take a look at what's been going on the girls' side over the last several weeks, OutsideTheHuddle.net was able to break some news, so to speak, today about the SAC Holiday Tournament. Can you tell us about one change in particular and maybe potentially more with the Holiday Tournament?
Well, the biggest change and the major change is that, one, we're not going to get our seating here for probably another 10, 11 days. December 16th is what some coaches have told me when the seating will come out, and that's because the seating is going to be based on the Sagarin ratings this year and not the coaches' vote. So a pretty big change to take that out of the coaches' hands. And then obviously at this point there is no boys' Sagarin rating. There's a girls' one out already. But they got to wait for a boys' Sagarin rating to come out here a couple weeks into the season, and it's an odd change to take that out of the coaches' hands. So I guess we'll kind of see how that pans out, especially when you're only going to have 1 or 2 games to base that on.
I'm just going to hit you with this question: Is the format of the SAC Holiday Tournament become stale?
Absolutely, and I think that we saw that with the turnout last year. I love the SAC Holiday Tournament. I think the fact that it's going to be played in 3 days this year is great because it doesn't spread it out. Once we got to 4 days and we were playing championship games on their own day, I think that's made it a little more stale. So I think by virtue of when Christmas is this year, it has to be packed into the 26th through the 28th, that Thursday through Saturday helps. But there's some things that you could do, some elements you could add to make it more of a show. You were there last year, too. The turnout was just awful. One of the worst SAC Holiday Tournament turnouts that we've seen in a long time, with the exception of maybe night 1, where there was a decent turnout for Northrop and Southside. So I think that they got to figure out some things to change it up a little bit.
All right, Dan, let's look a little bit at the girls' side of things, and they're in the thick of the schedule right now. A lot of teams have played 5, 6, 7, 8 games already. What are some of these storylines that have come out of the first few weeks of the season for the girls?
Well, I'm really impressed with how Norwell's playing right now, and they're a team that suffered a loss at Warsaw very quickly, but have played really tight, really close games against good competition. Teams that we're considering, top 10, top 5 teams in this area. Bishop Blue, we're going to get a Norwell Homestead game like we had last year because I think that could be a lot of fun. But I think Norwell, they kind of have taken it personally. This is a team that didn't win a title last year for the first time in a long time. No Northeast 8 title, no sectional title. And there's a drought there for them. And as this group of girls, most of them are juniors now that are part of their core, I think they kind of took it personally that, hey, we've been here. We've seen the success. We've been part of the success. And then last year, sophomores, we failed. And I think the Norwell and how they're playing and how motivated they're playing is probably the most interesting part of the girls' season so far.
Can anybody challenge Homestead in the SAC?
It's going to be interesting, and obviously a big part of that is there without Ayanna Patterson. That timetable, not really known how long that she'll be gone. We don't know if she'll be back for the SAC holiday tournament or if they'll go ahead and hold her out until the first of the year with an MCL sprain. So right now, I think it's a possibility. Carroll on Friday night is a really interesting game for them because Carroll goes so deep. Win earlier this week against DeKalb, they had 13 different girls score. And you've seen it before, Mark Redding, sometimes using that hockey line change mentality, fresh 5 in. He's got some young girls, but they're gaining a lot of experience by him being able to play them early. Carroll, I think, would be an interesting matchup. Even though I don't think they're the second best team in the SAC, I really like Bishop Luers for a matchup with Homestead. And especially if Ayanna Patterson's out, because Bishop Luers has been so strong inside. Lydia Reinbold's having a great year, arguably the best player in the SAC right now, and they're able to do a lot of good things inside. Homestead doesn't have that size. They don't have a lot of experience with that size when you look at Amber Austin and some of the freshmen and sophomores that have to come in and fill in spots now off the bench. So I think that Luers could be another team, obviously the only team to beat Homestead so far in SAC or SAC holiday tournament play ever. So yeah. I think that Luers could be a fun one.
We're barely a week into boys action, started last week, but what are some of the things you've learned or some of the things you're looking ahead to possibly find out here in the next days and weeks as we kick into boys basketball?
I think we're going to keep learning more about Blackhawk Christian really quickly. Obviously, they're going to have to turn around tomorrow and play at New Haven. It's a very interesting game, very tough game for them. But I was impressed with them on Tuesday because this is a team that only returns 3 guys with significant playing time to the varsity level, but they look like a well-oiled machine and guys that you have not seen before. Callan Wood really stood out to me on Tuesday against Northside. Guys you haven't seen on the varsity level, most casual basketball fans, even hardcore fans in the area, don't even know who they are, and they played very well. And I was really impressed with how Zane Burke played. And Caleb First obviously gets the attention, had a great game, 29 points, 15 rebounds. Zane Burke scored 33, had 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and I think we had a lot of questions in how he was going to do as the point guard and if he was going to be able to be as strong as a guy getting to the basket when he had to distribute as well. And obviously Northside is on the lower end of teams in the area right now, but I think Zane proved to us that he can play that role, and I'm really looking forward to that game tomorrow because New Haven has played great their first 2 games. I saw them play Woodland last week. They just picked up a big one over Northrop earlier this week and did it without Donovan Lewis, who's arguably their second best player. And I think that's a lot in part because Thomas Latham is playing great, and he's kind of pinned himself as the big player to watch early in the season. And some renovated digs out at New Haven. Yeah, it's great in there. Great new facility. The entrance is a little bit different, but great new floor. Their field house that's right there where the freshmen are playing. They have some additional courts. New lighting, new American flag drops down from the center of the ceiling, the center of the court when they play the national anthem. I really enjoyed getting out to New Haven and checking out their new situation last week. All right, Dan, before we let you go, what's new at OTH.net? Obviously, we have our Game of the Week preview in Blackhawk Christian. Headed to New Haven tomorrow. Bounce column about this change in the SAC holiday tournament. And coming up in the next few days, we're going to kind of break down some end-of-season awards, and we're going to do it conference by conference. So we'll start with the NECC and kind of go conference by conference and talk about the big players, big games, and big moments from this year in high school football. All right, bud, it's basketball time. It's your favorite time of year, so... Best time of the year. All right, bud, we'll catch up to you next week. All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys. That's Dan Vance of OutsideTheHuddle.net joining us here as he does each and every week, talking some area high school football and basketball with Mr. Vance. But starting next week, it'll be all basketball all the time. And that's Dan Vance's favorite time of the year for sure. So between his Blue Devils and covering area high school sports, he's got a lot going on here in the winter months. We're going to take a break, come back. Coach Rod Parker, Homestead Spartans, will join us. We'll break down the first 5 games of the season for the Spartans, see where they're at. Eric Thornton of the Norwell Knights also coming up later. We're here till 7 o'clock. DC Hendricks, Justin Kennedy here on the ESPN High School Coaches Show, presented by Crumbach Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
For me, it's always been the same thing. This is a quarterback-driven league. If a running back was to win the MVP, that means that the value of running backs has always gone up. They don't like paying running backs, even though whenever it gets to the playoffs, running backs are the only thing that matters. Quarterbacks are the face of the league. They're going to be the ones that win the MVP. But if you're a non-quarterback player that gets into that conversation, you should feel good about yourself.
The Pat McAfee Show. Weekday afternoons from 2 to 4 on Fort Wayne Sports Station, ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
The bond we share with our pets is undeniable. They fill us with love, comfort, and joy, and they deserve the same. As pet owners, we want to care for and protect our pets. Sadly, in homes where domestic violence occurs, pets are often victims too. Hi, I'm Russell Wilson. Each year, millions of domestic violence victims stay in abusive situations because they fear for the safety of their pet. With less than 10% of domestic violence shelters allowing pets, too many lives remain at risk. Victims of domestic violence should never have to make a choice between their own safety and the safety of their loved ones, including pets. That's why the Banfield Foundation supports programs that provide temporary shelter and veterinary care so people and pets can find safety together. Because when we help pets, we help people too. To learn more and get involved, visit banfieldfoundation.org/safertogether.
Dreaming of becoming a professional race car driver? Speeding around empty parking lots is a start, but going pro takes time. So does quitting smoking. It's not about stopping in one day. It's about starting with day one. You just need to take that first step. Get started on your journey toward a smoke-free life with the American Cancer Society. We'll give you the support and resources you need to quit smoking. The finish line is closer than you think. Learn more at cancer.org/smokeout.
In the aftermath of tragic attacks such as the one at Santa Fe High School in Texas, there is often an increase in hoax threats to schools and other public places. Whether false threats are made on social media, verbally or otherwise, criminals could be locked behind prison doors for up to 5 years. FBI Deputy Director David Bowditch.
The Bureau and its law enforcement partners take each threat seriously. We investigate and fully analyze each threat to determine its credibility.
In addition to time behind bars and a fine, other consequences of this crime include
emotional distress to students, school personnel, and parents. False threats also drain taxpayer money and divert valuable law enforcement resources away from other critical responsibilities.
Making false threats is not a joke. Think before you post. Report threats and suspicious behavior to law enforcement, and in emergencies, dial 911. With FBI This Week, I'm Molly Halpern of the Bureau.
Now back to the Crumback Chevrolet High School Coaches Show on ESPN Radio, 13.8 and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back, everyone, to the ESPN High School Coaches Show, presented by Crumback Chevrolet. I'm Justin Kenny. He's DC Hendricks here till 7 o'clock, talking area high school basketball. Thank you to Dan Vance before the break, breaking down the 4A state championship game that we saw last Saturday, and also helping us transition to basketball. And we're going to keep that up in the next half hour. Coach Eric Thornton, Norwell Knights, will join us here in a little bit. But let's kick it off with Rod Parker, Homestead Spartans, who joins us right now on the line. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing very well. And yourself?
Oh, it's basketball time. It's time to transition to hoops. So you've been there for a while, but we're all catching up. So how are things going?
It's going well. We've got a fun team to coach this year, a pretty young group. But I think we're improving and having a lot of fun working with them.
Take us through the first 5 games. You guys avenged the football loss with a win over Carmel to kick it off. Been on the road the last couple weeks.
Yeah, we have. Starting off with Carmel is always a tough task when it's your first game. We really don't know too much about each other, but it was a good test for us. A close game, one that we were fortunate to get out of there with a win. But we build on it. We've improved, and I thought we played some really good basketball here as of late.
You guys go to Huntington North last week and get a 46-34 victory. Take us through that one, because Huntington North is always kind of plays their style and likes to frustrate teams, keep you low scoring, but you guys were able to get a win there.
And definitely Coach Hines is going to do a good job down there, but he's come from working with Coach Teagle and stuff. They play a very slow, deliberate style of basketball, kind of use their offense a little bit to play defense, but I thought it was a game where our kids defended long possessions and defended well. I think that was one of the big things we emphasized going into that basketball game. and we valued our possessions on offense, and I thought we had good productivity, especially for the first 3 quarters of the basketball game.
You got a couple seniors you guys are relying on, Sydney Graber and Riley Parker, and have they led and played the way you want those 2 girls to do that through the first 5 games? Yeah, most definitely. I mean, those are 2 good seniors right now, both on the court and off the court. Great leaders. They've continue to have a great culture in our program right now, and they're keeping that tradition going strong. And on the court, they're both playing very good basketball right now. They're playing unselfish. They're picking up the load when they need to. They've been scoring it well, defending well, and really providing great leadership for the younger kids in our program. You got a lot of juniors, but the only real name that jumps out, Grace Sullivan, but a lot of talent in that class. Are they developing as you'd like? Yeah, and the nice thing about some of the kids in that junior class is they really understand their roles. And that's nice when you have kids in a program on a team that understand what it takes to win and are happy with those particular roles. I think Grace has done a great job this year stepping in at the point guard, position, defending great, taking care of the basketball, getting to different people when they need to receive it to score. She's scoring, consistently in each game. So she's just having a really good year right now. And Amber Austin's another one that's really stepping up for us in the post, playing some great post defense. I think she had 8 blocks at Huntington North, and averaging just under 10 points a game. So doing their jobs well, and really complimenting, what we're trying to do out there with the seniors and Ayana. How's Sydney Graber been playing? Sydney's having a great year. Sydney's really evolved and developed into, one of the top couple players in Northeast Indiana. She made a big effort in the off season, to diversify her game, get in shape, and so on. And she's just really playing good basketball right now. She's very hard to defend with her ability to play inside and out. And she's really made an effort this year. She can defend 4 positions on the court, and that's a big thing for us. She's given us a lot of flexibility on the defensive end. When I see her play, sometimes I have to do a double take to make sure it's her, because she, not just physically, but in her game, looks completely different than what she did as a freshman, sophomore, even a junior. Yeah, it's been a fun progression to watch. Obviously, as a coach, because it's definitely helping us out. But, Sydney's always been talented. But the biggest thing is Sydney loves the game of basketball. She works hard. She's really made a strong effort to improve, her particular game, her shape, and so on to get ready for her senior year. And then obviously, having the fortunate opportunity to play at the next level. But she's doing a great job. And, right now I'm most pleased with Sydney in the fact that she just sets the bar very high every day in practice of how hard you have to work to be successful. And, she simply wants to win. And you love coaching kids who put in the time and effort to put themselves in the position to be successful. Guys have played the last few games without sophomore Ayanna Patterson, down with an injury. How has she played before she went out with the injury, and can we expect her back anytime soon? You know what? We're expecting Ayanna to play tomorrow night. She's practiced, here the last week or so. So it's going to be big to have her back in the lineup for us. And, Ayanna unfortunately has had a little run of injuries, over the summer and the off season, and then got things going for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. Was really starting to look good. Back in shape. Her game was strong. Physically, she's just a different person than she was last year. So tweaking her knee at the end of that Northridge game was, an unfortunate break. On the flip side, we were fortunate that she wasn't, hurt seriously, and that she's been able to bounce back and get back in the lineup this week. But, Ayanna is how do you say it, the best player in the area. And so adding her back to the lineup, coming up is going to be a big thing for us. Speaking of big things, you got a big one tomorrow with the rival Carroll coming in, and Coach Redding's got a deep team. He can go, 10, 11 deep if he needs to. He can, sub in 4 or 5 girls at a time. They're 6-1. What do you expect tomorrow night? Well, Carroll teams are always, tough, and it's always a big rivalry game for us. So it's going to be a big crowd. It's going to be a fun and good scores on his team. His starters are solid, 4 return from last year. You got a deep bench. They like to pressure all over the court and mix up their defenses. So, for us, the big key offensively tomorrow is, recognizing the defenses, adjusting to them, and valuing our possessions. And, if we get good shots tomorrow, which I'd like to think we can, that we ought to be able to knock some down. And then on the flip side, as always, no matter who we play, we have to defend. And if we can defend well as a team,
make it hard for Carroll, then, I like our chances.
Coach, I haven't talked to a single coach about this, but it came out today that for seeding for the holiday tournament, they're going to use Sagarin ratings instead of coaches' vote. Does that change anything? Did you like voting? Do you like it being taken out of your hands? One less thing you got to worry about, or is it a non-factor?
Well, I'll be honest, Justin. I was the one that proposed that 2 years ago.
Oh, you're a genius.
Sagarin rating. Yeah, I'm the one that proposed that because there were always complaints, and I just think it was tough that, when people would go to vote, we had to vote. We'd submit our votes real early in the season. We only played 4 or 5 games, that kind of thing, and depending on someone's schedule, I think sometimes it was skewed, and I think there were people that maybe really didn't have a chance to watch some other teams in our conference play at that point in time. And so the Sagarin ratings, I think, are something that's fair. It builds in strength of schedule. So somebody could have a couple losses, but they're going to get rewarded for going out and playing tough non-conference games. Or if there's tough conference matchups in the first 2 weeks of the season, which may result in a loss or two. I just think it's good. I think it takes biases out of the picture. I just think it is an easy, consistent way to do it each and every year.
Now, take that one step further. Would you like to see some sort of Sagarin ratings to seed the tournament, or maybe just seed the top 2 in each section?
I'd love to see it seed the tournament.
Yeah.
Again, I do. I think that's a good thing. And, here's the thing I've always said. You have to beat good teams to win a sectional. You have to beat good teams to advance in the tournament and do anything real special. However, I think it's good for the fans. I think it's just good for the tournament that things are set up to hopefully the deeper you go into a sectional, into a semifinal or a final, that they should be the bigger games. And the games that are going to put the most people in the stands, typically on a Friday and Saturday night as opposed to 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, which could be the biggest game, of your sectional, is by the blind draw. So, I'm a fan of it. I think John Hale's website is fantastic. I think that it's reliable enough to be able to see, the postseason, and definitely now I'm glad to see it with our holiday tournament.
Rod Parker talks, things get done. So pay attention, Bobby Cox. Right?
Yeah. Well, I had to talk a long time for people to listen to this one. So
it's kind of like teaching, huh?
I do think it's good for the tournament, though. I really do. I just think it sets up the big games deeper in the tournament. Not to say there aren't going to be upsets, but just on typical or on average. I just think it's good, and I think it rewards some teams for what they do all year long and how they set their schedules as well.
Well, I think on the boys' side in particular, because that vote was so early in the season, sometimes maybe even before some of the teams had played, and it was really skewed.
Yeah, I think we have to, I have to submit my roster and stuff first of next week for the holiday tournament, and in years past, that's when your seeding stuff had to be submitted. And to your point, our boys only played 1 game so far.
Yeah,
and they'd be a week away from having to submit a ballot, and that's a tough thing to do. So. It is probably a little more fair for the girls, even using the Sagarin ratings, because we start early enough that by the date they pull that Sagarin ratings, most of us are going to play 8 games, which is more than a third of our season, really getting close to half of our season. So it at least balances out, and I think gives a pretty fair representation, especially on our side of things.
All right, Coach, appreciate it. Good luck tomorrow. You got Norwellsville at home on Saturday afternoon, and then a big one at DeWanger next Friday night. But we'll see you guys can knock off the Chargers first tomorrow night.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach. That's Coach Rod Parker, the mastermind of the change in the SAC. And I know there were some people that didn't like it, some people did, but I think it makes sense. I think you take biases out of it, and I've been around long enough to know that biases factor into some big decisions in the city when it comes to the SAC. Who makes all area, or who gets voted all area, or who puts a team higher than they should or lower than they should. I've covered this stuff for almost 20 years, and there's incidents, that it's obvious that something was going on. So this takes the human element out of it and puts it in the hands of the Sagarin ratings. And I think if you look at the Sagarin ratings on the girls' side right now, it makes pretty good sense on 1 through 10 in terms of the Sagarin. But they won't draw those Sagarin ratings until I believe 2 weeks from today. It'll be December 19th. They will look at the Sagarin for both girls and boys and seed the tournament. The tournament, by the way, December 26th, 27th, and 28th of December at Wayne High School. So bright and early, day after Christmas, 9 o'clock tip for that opening game. So don't get too crazy on Christmas night if you're heading out to Wayne on Thursday morning, because that's when the tournament starts. So thank you for Coach Parker for joining us. We're going to come back. We'll talk to Coach Eric Thornton real quick. You're listening to the ESPN High School Coaches Show presented by Crumbach Chevrolet on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Saturday on Compass Media Networks, it's the 2019 Big Ten Championship game featuring the West Division champs, the Wisconsin Badgers, and the East champs, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Hi, it's Greg Daniels. Join Steve Berline and me for all the action as one of these Big Ten powerhouses claims their conference crown and punches a ticket to the 4-team playoff. It's Jonathan Taylor in Wisconsin, Justin Fields and Ohio State. If it's the Big Ten Championship, it's right here
on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Let's talk about America. Not taxes or tweets or the issues that divide us, but how incredible our country is. Left, right, up, down, state lines to winding coastlines. Whether you come home to a crowded city street, tree-lined suburb, or sleepy small town, everyone deserves to live in a clean, green, and thriving community. And we all share in the responsibility to create beauty that ripples from one neighborhood to another and one block to the next. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working with millions of people just like you to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify our communities. Because every mindful action and sustainable habit has a positive impact, and it all adds up. Learn how you can join Keep America Beautiful at KAB.org. Together, we can do beautiful things.
You're listening to the Crumbach Chevrolet High School Coaches Show on ESPN Radio 1380 and 100.9 FM.
Welcome back for the final time here on the ESPN High School Coaches Show presented by Crumbach Chevrolet, ESPN 1380, 100.9 FM. Coming up later tonight, Bears Cowboys right here on ESPN Radio 1380. Who's winning, DC?
I got the Cowboys.
You would.
Are you going to pick the Bears?
I am picking the Bears, and it very well could be their last win of the year because they play Kansas City, Minnesota, and Green Bay the final 3 weeks of the season.
Sounds like some wishful thinking there.
Well, I don't think Cowboys haven't played very well. They haven't beaten anybody with a winning record, and the Bears have beaten one team with a winning record. So,
woo!
Yeah, see? We got an advantage. But, with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, anything's possible. Mostly negative. But that's coming up tonight, later tonight. If you can't get in front of the TV, it'll be right here on ESPN Radio 1380, 100.9 FM. All right, enough football. Let's talk some basketball. Our final guest of the evening. We talked to Rod Parker before the break. We're going to continue talking girls basketball with Coach Eric Thornton of the Norwell Knights. Coach, how are you?
I'm good, Justin. How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing tremendous. And you guys are doing tremendous right out the gate, playing some good basketball.
The girls have been. They've handled the difficult schedule very well, and that's been good to see. It's fun to win close games and build some confidence, and so we've got another tough weekend here.
But at least you get at least one at home tomorrow against Huntington North. You guys, 5 of the first 7 games have been on the road.
Yeah, it's been very road heavy. It's been good for us to have to go into some of those tough schools on the road, and we'll be a little more home heavy next year, but this is good for this group.
I felt, I in particular noticed the opening game of the season for you guys going to Oak Hill, and I know Coach Law's kind of reloading a little bit at Oak Hill, but for you guys to go down there and have a big lead, end up winning by 17, was really impressive right out the gate.
Yeah, that's been fun to get to know Todd over the years and watch his teams excel at the 2A level. And I do know they graduated a huge senior class last year. But the Westgate girl and a couple senior guards, they have enough pieces this year. They're in our sectional. We thought it'd be a good time to play them for a 2-year series. And Todd does a great job, and they've really improved. That might have been the best time to catch them in the first game. So if we do happen to see them in sectional, I know they'll be a different team.
Coach, before we delve into some of your girls, you look at last year, winning 19 games, but you didn't win the conference. You didn't win a sectional championship. It's the first time in a long time that Norwell hasn't won a title of some sort. Was that motivation going into the season, or was that something that really didn't, factor in very much?
It's a lot of motivation. It is an empty feeling to have such a good regular season. We knew how good our sectional was. In fact, we talked to you there heading into sectional. Belmont had a great season. They got us. Marion wins the sectional. They go to semi-state. I think everybody in that sectional knew whoever came out of it was going to have a nice chance to make a run. The conference was really good, and it was Grace Hunter's year, and our girls are very motivated by not winning a championship last year, and that's definitely at the top of the list, is to not win just one, but multiple this season.
Some of the girls that you counted on last year and are still relatively young and being juniors, girls like Maya Shelton and Kaylee Fueling, Lauren Bales, phenomenal players. How have they started off here in their junior years?
Well, their motto is unfinished business, and that's their that's their deal. I think that says it all for them. I think they feel like they have a lot to accomplish this year. I think that they are hungry. I think they enjoy the schedule. And I think they bought into everything that we've tried to do this year. We've got some role players that have joined those girls. Breanne Barger is having a great senior year, the only senior on our team. You mentioned several of our juniors. I'm really proud of this group. Everybody has value on our team, and hopefully we keep getting a little bit better, and we can accomplish some of these goals.
You mentioned Breanne, who came out late for you last year and is the lone senior on the team this year. What kind of things have you asked her to do as maybe the lone player in her final season with the team?
Well, I think Bree just does so many things well. It's probably unfair to her to say that she doesn't do anything great, because I think she probably does. But when you look at her all-around game, she literally has an effect on every single possession of the game, whether it be in her rebounding, her scoring has improved, her perimeter shot, her the way that she has confidence out there on the floor, playing the top of the 1-3-1. She has such a great impact, but Bree is such a calming force on our team. She is has such a gentle spirit. But I'll tell you what, she has really found a way to lead in the best way possible. And I think the one thing I asked her to do is just don't let the little things, when you're with each other on a daily basis as much as a team is during a basketball season, which is very long, the little things can become big things. And I think that might have happened a little bit at times last year. It's not abnormal for that to happen. We just had a little bit of a discussion about, hey, let's not let those things blow up and become bigger than they really are, because in the end, it's really about trying to head in the right direction, and it's not always going to be straight up all the time, but I think Bree's the right kid to be able to lead us through some of those moments where it might feel like it's more of a negative than it is, and I think that's just the type of leader that she is for us.
Coach, congratulations are in order. Mr. 350th win over Concordia last week in your 23 years. Let's go for 700 in another 23 years. How about that?
Well, I look at some of the people who have done this for, maybe, 38 to 42 years, and you just think, my word, that is so impressive. That's not going to happen, I can tell you that. For me, I do have a third grade daughter that I'd love to coach. If I'm allowed to get to that point of my career, that would be great. But it is literally year to year enjoying, being here at Norwell and being part of such a great community, our administration, our student body. The support that we get for our girls basketball program it's tough to match that, not only in the area, but I would say the state of Indiana. We're pretty fortunate to be a part of this. I love our program, and I'd love to keep doing this for quite a while yet. But thank you.
Absolutely. Coach, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time. We'll catch up to you down the road.
Thanks a lot, Justin.
That's Coach Eric Thornton, Norwell.
Podcasts by Federated Media. Podcasts by Federated Media.